Oh, all right.
Down means, Jesse, it's time for
On the clock.
draft. Oh boy. All right.
Got my list here.
All right. And we know who's number one on your list. We know who's number one on my list. So let's figure out who's going to take that person. Let's go to the comments real quick. There's a lot of Joe Milton love in the comments. Lot of Joe Milton. Do you think, this is Vori, do you think Milton winning the Heisman, winning national championship for the Balls is a possibility?
I don't know. What say you?
We're flying Air Milton this year. Sure feels like 1998. Wow. There's a lot of balls.
Feels like 98. Balls are feeling good.
That's right. All right. We're going to figure out who gets the first pick. And the only way to do it is the only fair way to do it. Best of 3, rock, paper, scissors. Jesse, let's go. Wait, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Is that how we're going to do it?
Let's do it.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Scissors, shoot. Okay, I was paper, so you beat me.
I was scissors. I win. All right.
Yeah.
Ready to go. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Scissors, shoot.
Both rock.
Yeah.
All right.
Rock.
Paper, scissors, shoot.
We're both paper.
Rock. Paper, scissors, shoot. Oh. I'm paper, he's scissors. Next one wins.
Next one wins. Let's do it.
Let's go. I'm loosening up now. All right. Rock. Paper, scissors, shoot.
Boom.
Oh, Jesse's paper, I'm rock. It's over. Jesse.
This makes it more interesting too, because we kind of had a little pre-draft kind of discussion little thing here. So this will be fun because yes, I am definitely taking the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, the guy with the probably best chance. I know a lot of folks thought Bryce was maybe going to, had a decent chance of repeating. It's really hard. Obviously only Archie Griffin is the only guy that's ever done it. But I think Caleb is certainly set up to become the second guy. So I'm taking USC quarterback Caleb Williams, number 1 overall, will be the first pick in the NFL draft in 2024 too.
Here's why I think it's going to be harder for him to win the Heisman. I think it's first of all that he won the Heisman last year. Second
fatigue,
of all,
naturally.
Right. He is the presumptive NFL number 1 overall pick, which means people will be picking him apart relentlessly from the other side of the coin. The NFL folks, the draftniks, will be picking him apart relentlessly. So I think that will creep in, and nothing short of perfection from Caleb Williams is going to win him the Heisman this year. That said, I would have gladly taken him had I won this thing, but I can't. So now
this is the interesting pick, though. Who you got? Because I think, the folks in the comments, they obviously like Joe Milton, but I think, even the casual college football fan would probably say, well, it's got to be Drake May.
Well,
is Drake May?
Am I picking the quarterback or am I picking his supporting cast? Because if I'm picking his supporting cast, why wouldn't I pick just Kyle McCord or Carson Beck? They got great supporting casts.
You can pick whoever you want. You're believing in the quarterback based on the system, based on the talent surrounding them, based on maybe what they have or haven't done yet. So I'm curious. Where are you going with this?
I'm going to pick Drake May.
There you go.
I got to. He's so good. Now, the question is, Drake May without Josh Downs, can he be as good? We know Chip Lindsey's coming on board to run the offense. We just mentioned Phil Longo left for Wisconsin. So
we've talked about Kent State. They had that Kent State transfer that they got a bunch of buzz at receiver this spring. Harmon, I think. I'm blanking on his name, but I think he's supposed to fill in for Josh Downs as that number 1 target. So,
well, they're going to need that. They're going to need to run the ball fairly well with backs. I think one thing that hurt Sam Howell that second year as a starter, or the third year as a starter for Sam, was he had to be the whole running game too. I don't want Drake to have to be the whole running game, even though athletically he's pretty good at it. But I do think it's asking a lot of him. So, Jesse, who's your second pick?
My second pick, I am banking on the continued growth of one Jordan Travis.
Ooh.
Florida State returns as much production as any team in the country. This is a guy who's just gotten better and better. He's going to be a 6-year senior. He's surrounded by oodles of talent. Obviously, they've, bring back several quality receivers, Johnny Wilson, but then they go out and get a guy like Keon Campbell from the transfer portal, Michigan State's best receiver. They get Jaheim Bell, tight end from South Carolina. He's surrounded by a ton of dudes. He obviously could go boom or bust in terms of his Heisman odds early in the season. Depends on what happens week one in the game. I know you and I are both, stoked about with LSU down in Orlando, and then, middle of September, FSU goes to Clemson. So he wins one of those games. I think he's looking pretty good in terms of being a contender the rest of the season. He wins both of them. The dude's going to skyrocket up the board.
I am trying not to be influenced by the commenters here. I'm trying, because I have one pick in mind, but they are reminding me of a game I watched late last season that showed the kind of promise that really just, it was going to be hard for me to stay off his bandwagon. I think my son is texting me picks, by the way, outside the door. He's a big JJ McCarthy guy. Big JJ McCarthy stan. All right. Well, I just got Matthew C., who is a Georgia fan. You picked Joe Milton. You deserve to lose, Andy. I'm picking Joe Milton.
Wow.
Go Big Orange. Give me Joe Milton. No, I said during the Orange Bowl, he made a throw into the end zone, put it only where his receiver could have caught it between double coverage. And I said, he's finally gotten accurate. He's finally figured it out. Don't tell me about the Vandy game. Stop telling me about the Vandy game. I'm convincing myself that Clemson game was representative of what we're going to see from Joe Milton going forward. So give me Joe Milton.
This is all this is you sold your stock for Anthony Richardson, and now you're doubling down on Joe Milton.
Jesse, after the Utah game last year, I said Anthony Richardson will be a first-round draft pick. Was I wrong?
You were proven correct. You were proven.
I also said he'd be a Heisman finalist. I was very wrong in that one. But Joe Milton, here's the thing. This is a boom or bust pick because we have seen Joe Milton before. We saw Joe Milton at Michigan. We saw Joe Milton as a starter at Tennessee get supplanted by Hendon Hooker because he airmails the ball quite a bit because he's got an arm that is stronger than most arms we've ever seen. Like, I don't know. I really don't know if there are any quarterbacks in the NFL with a stronger arm than Joe Milton. I do know there are significantly more quarterbacks in the NFL with a more accurate arm than Joe Milton. But if he can be accurate in that offense, it's going to be very difficult to stop. So I'm going Joe Milton. Jesse, who you got next?
Let's just earmark this for when it's like week 6 and they're Tennessee fans
and they're chanting for Nico. I don't want to hear it.
I don't want to hear it. Yeah. All right, I'm choosing a dude that I can't believe is still left on the board because I was debating picking between 1 and 2, or not 1 and 2, 2 and 3 here. I'm going back to the Pac-12. Give me Michael Penix, baby. I'm a southpaw.
You blew it.
I'm a southpaw. He's a southpaw. You can take Bo Nix. I'm taking Michael Penix. He's got 2 1,000-yard receivers around him, and that's not even the best one. The freshman Polk a year ago was probably the most dynamic and explosive guy in this offense. I'm a Kalen DeBoer believer. I think Penix is going to have a monster senior season. This is a guy, but this is what NIL is all about. He was able to come back to school because he was not going to be a first or second round pick a year ago. We'll see if he can work his way into this, but this is not an NFL draft discussion. This is a college football quarterback draft. The guy led the nation in passing. Give me the southpaw. Huskies, baby.
That's fine. I'm good with that.
You're taking McCarthy. Go for it.
I'm not taking my son's going to keep texting me to take McCarthy.
Your son's blowing you up for
it. And I believe that's a good pick in a few picks. One of us is going to take JJ McCarthy, but not yet. I'm taking Bo Nix. Until he got dinged up in the Washington game last year, Jesse, he was tracking stat-wise for a season that was almost identical to Marcus Mariota's 2014 Heisman season. This is a guy with more weapons around him. I think their defense is going to be better, so he's not going to have to be Superman all the time. I think there's a really good chance he puts together a fabulous season, and he winds up standing there in New York with that trophy. Which, by the way,
the guy had 45 touchdowns a year ago, so he's certainly, I mean, he's capable of hitting the 50 burger. I think that's for sure.
If you had
no one has done better getting a fresh start, that's for sure.
Yeah, if you'd come to me 3 years ago and said you're going to be picking Bo Nix here, I'd have said, wait, how is Bo Nix still in college? Because you only get 4 years of eligibility. What worldwide catastrophe caused this? And why is he in Oregon? So, but that's where we're at. I really do think he's going to have a good year. All right, Jesse, who's up?
All right, in an ode to your ex co-host, the well-acclaimed Ari Wasserman, hook 'em, baby. I'm betting projection. Give me Quinn Ewers, cut the mullet. The dude is surrounded by more talent than any wide receiving core, pass catching core, however you want to delineate it, in college football.
Disagree. Disagree. That person's name is coming up, but it's not Quinn Ewers.
Nah, give me Saunders is the best tight end, not named Brock Bowers. The guy has A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Nair, who didn't even play last year, was considered one of the Boone transfers a year ago out of Wyoming. All the scuttle coming out of Austin right now is that the kid has just really matured. That he's really focused on improving his footwork. He's shored up some of the mechanics. Steve Sarkisian, I'm not sold on him as a head coach. The guy can't win 10 games at one of these blue blood programs. If he's going to, it certainly seems like it's going to be this year with a guy like a trigger man in Quinn Ewers, who held off all the hype with Arch Manning. Malik Murphy looked awesome in the spring, yet it's the former number 1 overall recruit that's going to hold the reins down. Hook 'em.
I'm glad you said that, because now I can take the guy whose team's going to be 12-0, who's playing behind the best offensive line in college football, who has incredible receiving or pass catching talent, because they're not all wide receivers. Some of them are tight ends, including the best tight end in the country, Brock Bowers. I'm going Carson Beck, baby.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick, and that fits your brand too, because you've been hyping him up for the Heisman. I like that.
Now, if he has a terrible first 2 games and Brock Vandagriff winds up starting, I look like a moron. But I got a good feeling about this one.
No, I think Beck's going to be a stud. I mean, you're right that he is. When you factor in the offensive line and just the team, how the rest of the team is kind of assembled. Certainly, he is set up even better than Quinn Ewers. He looked really good in mop-up duty last year from in some spot games, and even then he got he basically played half the national championship game against TCU because they were beating him so bad. So, in an ode, Fred McGriff got nominated for the Hall of Fame today. I got a little Fred McGriff like bobblehead here, Crime Dog.
Yep.
Got a little bobblehead here. Maybe that should be Carson Beck's nickname. See, Crime Dog. I like that.
Oh, that could be. Does he have any Tom Emanski videos? That's what really matters with Fred McGriff. All right, Jesse, who's your next guy?
All right. So I'm kind of between two ferns here. On am I going to make a similar pick like you just did? Choose a guy who hasn't really done it yet, but is going to be surrounded by tons of talent.
The best receiving core in America, that guy?
Yeah. Or do I go with the rival and the quarterback who beat him last year?
Ooh. I know a certain person in my house who would like you to do that.
Your son clearly is a Wolverine, but I'm sticking with the brand. I think the Buckeyes, Ryan Day, give me Kyle McCord.
Jesse, I don't know if you know this, but Kyle McCord was Marvin Harrison Jr.'s high school quarterback. That is going to be the Tim Tebow and Riley Cooper, our roommates of 2023.
Or Matthew Stafford and Clayton Kershaw used to be pitcher catcher.
Went to the same high school. Exactly. Yes.
Went to the same high school. Used to be pitcher catcher. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to hear that a time or two from Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt. But this is a guy, again, we're betting these two picks. The fact that you went Carson and I'm going Kyle, it makes sense because these are guys that it is the system and the infrastructure that they're surrounded by. Both of them were blue chip quarterbacks. Both of them have bided their time, especially in the day and age when these guys are transferring at the first sign of not being given a job. I just think the upside's there. Again, I could look stupid if Devin Brown ends up, 33, comes in and steals the deal, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
All right. I am trying to figure this out because this is how deep this quarterback group is. I feel like I got a bunch of really good choices.
Oh,
Like
I got a ton of dudes.
I'm gonna really
That's why I
regret
said
who I
Mordecai.
leave off.
Yeah.
I'm going with a guy who has a very deep receiving core, is surrounded by a lot of talent, who really we watched kind of grow over last season in his new place where he'd been a 3-year starter before that and had regressed each season. He progressed through last season. So I'm predicting an even bigger jump for LSU quarterback Jaden Daniels.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, Jaden.
I mean, and it sticks with the brand too, because now this is 3 straight picks where the backup could end up taking the job. So when Garrett Nussmeier comes in, this is we're killing it with like, hey, are we drafting QB rooms? If we're doing that in the last 3 picks, we're slaying this draft. But I like it. I mean, I think Jaden Daniels is going to be. So he certainly is set up. I love, Malik Neighbors is probably the best receiver in the SEC, and the kid they got from Alabama, Anderson's going to be really good. Brian Thomas. I mean, they got a lot of really good. Mason Taylor, the tight end. LSU's loaded.
Yeah, I really am excited about what he can do because, I thought about his whole Arizona State arc. He was really good as a true freshman. You thought, okay, how great can this guy be? And they got worse and worse. Well, you go back and look, his freshman year, he had Brandon Ayuk and Eno Benjamin and Frank Darby. They had some talent around him in the skill positions that they didn't have those other 2 years. And then he gets to LSU, and they're kind of feeling their way around, letting him run around a little bit. But you saw kind of mid-season last year where he found himself as a passer in that offense. And now they've really beefed up their depth at receiver. You saw Mason Taylor, develop as a tight end last year. Obviously the huge 2-point conversion against Alabama. But
he
I
also
think Daniels spot.
He also, I mean, to back your point, this is a guy who I think last year was like the best scrambling quarterback in all of college football. And so the fact that he adds that element to the game, plus being surrounded by, this talent, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. And you're right. This board's so deep. I mean, when we wrap up the draft, we can run through a couple names that'll be like, wow, how did these guys not get picked? I'm between 2 guys again. A guy who probably has thrown more touchdowns than any quarterback in all of college football, playing for a new school in 2023. Or a guy that just won the Big Ten championship, and I'm going to take J.J. McCarthy. Tell your son he's off the board. Play the fight song. Back-to-back Ohio State, Michigan showdown. This is a guy, former 5-star. I think he certainly teased his potential throughout last season, and we finally saw the culmination of all of his talents and skills in that Ohio State game. Consistency is going to be the name of the game for J.J. I think it sounds like they're going to run him a little bit more this year, which is interesting. I'm not crazy about the receiver weapons, but there's enough talent there. He obviously has a 1-2 punch at running back, and they'll throw the ball a ton to both Edwards and Corum. So give me JJ. We'll see if he can win back-to-back Big Ten titles and kind of slay the dragon that is Ohio State for 3rd year in a row for the Big Wolverines.
Yeah, JJ's probably not going to put up the biggest numbers in the world because they will happily run for 400 yards if somebody will let them. But in the games that they're going to need him, we saw it last year. I mean, he certainly has the talent. And this is a 5-star guy. This is Dane Brugler, who I used to host a draft podcast with at The Athletic, loves him, says the NFL people love his tools. So I think this is a really good pick. And I think I'm going to go with the guy that you were weighing against, J.J. McCarthy, not too far away over in South Bend. Wake Forest transfer Sam Hartman. He's at Notre Dame now. He'll be playing behind the best offensive line he's ever played behind. He'll be playing with the best backs he's ever played with. I'm not sure if he's playing with better receivers than he played with at Wake Forest. That's going to be a really interesting question, but we'll see him in a different system than the slow mesh. Jared Parker, the new offensive coordinator at Notre Dame, we'll see what he can get out of Sam Hartman. But this guy has been around the block. We've seen him in big games. We've seen him deal with very ferocious defenses. He's not scared when he's playing against a bunch of draft picks at Clemson. And so I think he can really elevate the Fighting Irish.
He's another guy too, Andy, that this is emblematic of kind of the progression of college football where he's allowed to stick around because of NIL. He probably would have gone pro otherwise because, he would have at least made some money, but he's
Oh, he's
not
going to
going to
make
be
a
a
roster. Absolutely. Yeah.
right. He would have made a roster, but now he can really cash in for 1 year. Boom. See if you can improve your stock. See if you can kind of showcase your different skills in a new offense. I think Sam Hartman's going to be, dynamite there.
So you got 4 more picks. What you got?
Well, one of our prerequisites for this draft is you have to take a G5 quarterback. Give me the best one. We teased his name earlier. I'm taking Michael Pratt.
Yeah,
This is a guy that
you
several
don't have to
programs.
say you have to take a G5 quarterback because there's a
No,
bunch that are in consideration here.
right, and this is a guy that there were several Power 5 programs, including the one down here in Gainesville, that were quite interested in Tulane's quarterback. They lost Spears, but they returned most of their receivers, a lot of offensive linemen. This is a guy who led, the Green Wave to their best season in school history. Just Willie Fritz, that offense, I think he's going to put up big numbers again. He's a guy that has legitimate NFL traits. He's a guy that I think if he has a similar season of what he did a year ago, you're going to see him climb up the board when they start talking about, all right, who's after Drake May and Caleb Williams and kind of that 1-2 group. When there's like the next wave, I think Michael Pratt's going to be in that mix.
I can't believe you left this guy for me. I cannot believe this.
Go for it.
This person might be in the college football playoff. He might be playing for a conference winner, Power 5 conference champion. He's going to potentially put up some big numbers in a new offense. Clemson's Cade Klubnik.
Down the board for me. Too much projection.
He's got Garrett Riley right now designing a ball play sheet for him. I am very excited about Cade Klubnik's potential here. Now, I need to see some dudes at receiver for Clemson.
I was going to say, let's play a game of name that Clemson receiver this year.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to need to have some young receivers develop. It can't all be Will Shipley all the time, handing it to him, throwing it to him. It's got to be more than that. But I look at what Garrett Riley did to that TCU offense last year with a bunch of guys who were not necessarily household names. Quentin Johnson winds up being a first-round draft pick. I think this could be very exciting. And I've said many times, when Clemson brings in new ideas, they tend to take a step forward. And I was worried that when they went internal on both coordinators last year, I was worried that it was going to get a little stale, and it sure did. I'm excited to see what happens here. I think we're going to see Cade Klubnik do quite a bit this year. Who you got next?
Well, I'm tempted to take another 5-star that we haven't really seen a whole lot from quite yet. And it's kind
I hear
of
stars matter.
The next dude. Stars do matter. And I think they particularly matter at quarterback. I'm going to hold off, though, and I'm going to go with a guy who I know is also near and dear to your heart. You spent some time with him this past week in Nashville. It's a good dude. He plays for a good dude. I'm going Mr. Yes Sir's quarterback. Give me KJ Jefferson.
Oh, yes, sir.
Give me Mr. Yes Sir's quarterback. I mean, this is a guy who you just talk about what college football is all about. I mean, he does not have, I don't think, real outstanding NFL traits, but he can just grind out games, and he's a bulldozer runner. I think he's going to honestly show an improved passing game under Dan Enos. I think maybe the transition there from Kendall Briles to Dan Enos is going to do him a little favors. He's going to be under center a little bit more this year, a little more play action, kind of setting up some, natural deep shots. So there's some banking here that some of these receivers they took out of the portal are going to hit. We know they got Rocket Sanders and some of those running backs. But give me KJ. Big season, senior season for him.
My son, thinking SEC as well, he said, don't forget Will Rogers. Maybe not here, but down the board. Very, very good call. We talked to Will Rogers last week, Mississippi State's 4th-year starting quarterback at SEC Media Days. You're going to hear from him later this week. But that's not where I'm going with this right now. That is not where I'm going. Where I am going is, I think I'm going to go into the group of 5. I think I'm ready to make my foray into the group of 5 with a guy who started in Division 2, came up
Oh,
to
okay.
FBS, had a chance to go Power 5, but is back at
Got a
Western
car.
Kentucky.
Got a car not to do so.
Yeah, Austin Reed, Western Kentucky, West Florida, Western Kentucky. And the thought was maybe he's the next starting quarterback at some Power 5 school, but he is back with the Hilltoppers, and he put up great numbers in that offense. And I think there's a really good chance that he's going to be effective again. And, it'll be interesting to see what happens to him down the road, because this is a guy who felt like he was under recruited. He led West Florida to a Division II national championship and goes up a level. He wants to show that he can be an NFL quarterback. So I'm excited to see what Austin Reed can do. And so we've both met our group of 5 requirement here.
What kind of car was it that they got him that he drove onto the middle of
Was
their
it a
field?
Porsche? It was very nice.
Yeah, it was a very nice car. Tyson Helton has certainly got a whatever NIL deal hooked him up big there. So that's a good pick. I mean, again, there's some group of 5 guys that aren't. We'll see. It does a guy like Frank Harris, make one of the last couple picks. Grayson McCall. There's a ton of really good quarterbacks in 2023. Really good college quarterbacks, I should say. All right, I didn't take this guy last time. I'm going to take him this time. If Michigan or Ohio State aren't going to win the Big Ten, my guy is. Give me Drew Aller.
Drew Aller from Penn State, 5-star guy.
5-star guy. This is I think maybe LSU and Florida State are the only 2 teams other than Penn State that have become kind of the hype offseason teams. They returned a ton on defense. They returned Singleton at running back, Allen at running back. But I think the reason there's so much optimism around Franklin's program is that they feel like they finally have a fighter pilot at quarterback. And if you have one of these guys that can kind of, do the dang thing, Sean Clifford was nice. Sean Clifford was nice for 4 years. Seemed like he, had an extra year of eligibility every year. Finally, it's Drew Allar's time. Let the man cook.
That one's going to be fun to watch. Now, they have elite talent on their team. We're looking more at like Olufashinu, who is an offensive tackle who probably would have been a first-round draft pick had he gone out this past season. Abdul Carter coming off the edge, Chop Robinson. But if Drew Aller is really good, then we are going to be talking about Penn State not as a good team that just is a notch below Ohio State and Michigan. We're going to be talking about them as a competitor for the Big Ten title, for a playoff berth. This will be fun.
It's a 2-year window for this program. I mean, I'm not saying that it's capped after these 2 years, but the recruiting classes that Franklin has stacked up that are now going to be sophomores and juniors in 23 and 24 certainly seems like this is kind of it's crystallizing for the Nittany Lions if they're going to finally break through for the first time since 2016.
They also get Michigan at home this year, and for whatever reason, they can't seem to do anything in Ann Arbor, but they can play them just fine in State College. So, yeah, I'm very excited about that. I'm kind of shocked that this guy has fallen to me here because he's going to put up big, big numbers. Needs to stay healthy. We saw awful things happen when he was hurt and wasn't playing last year. Oklahoma quarterback Dylan Gabriel.
Okay.
UCF transfer. That offense is built to put up big numbers. We will see. Now, Jackson Arnold's sitting there behind him, and I know that's where Jesse's mind is going, that Jackson Arnold, big-time freshman recruit, but that's not the plan. The plan is not to play Jackson Arnold this year. The plan is for Dylan Gabriel to take the Sooners through their final year in the Big 12 and have Jackson Arnold ready to lead them into the SEC. Dylan Gabriel, healthy, can put up massive numbers and can help Oklahoma compete for a Big 12 title. That's why I got him on my team.
I like it. I mean, I think that I think the job's his. The scuttle around Jackson, I think, is just kind of that. It's not. It's full of kind of hot air. Dylan Gabriel back with the same OC. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, on him, Venables, that entire Oklahoma program. You've deemed it recession proof, and last year, Maybe not.
The leading
You know,
economic indicators were not good last year.
they were
Not
not. They
good.
were not.
I'm
So,
not going to
we'll
lie.
see what happens. All right, I'm tempted to stay in the Big 12 with a guy who I think is a whole lot of fun. Got his kind of moment in the sun a year ago on game day, then got dinged up a little bit. Plays for one of the best coaches, I think, in all of America. But I'm going to hold off. I'm actually going to go back to the SEC. Give me a guy who was beat up, tore his labrum, coming back, 35 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. The last time we saw him as a full-time starter. Devin Leary, Kentucky.
This could be the pick of the draft right here. This could be the value pick here, because if he brings Kentucky back to the level they were at in Will Levis's first year as the starter, and by the way, Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator who was there with Will Levis that first year, is back now too. Yeah, this could be a great pick because Devin Leary absolutely has NFL tools. And I mean, we were talking about a guy who they were running a Heisman campaign for at NC State this time last year.
And Kentucky's got sneaky skill weapons. I mean, Barian Brown is like the wide receiver that no one talks about in the SEC. Tavion Robinson kind of struggled a year ago, the Virginia Tech transfer. I think he's going to be better. Their offensive line, they've kind of shuffled the deck chairs. It's 4 of the same 5 starters, but guys are playing different positions. So I'm high on Devin Leary, and I think by season's end, if it's not Carson Beck, who was not named on one of the All SEC teams this past Friday, I think Devin Leary is going to be a quarterback that could find his way on that list.
I agree with you, and I'm excited to see what he could do at Kentucky because he can change that program's fortunes from what happened last year. My last one, we talked about him a little earlier. You said he wasn't on your board. He is on mine, and he'll be my final pick. Wisconsin's Tanner Mordecai, former SMU quarterback, former Oklahoma quarterback, threw for a bajillion touchdowns the past 2 seasons at SMU for Sonny Dykes and for Rhett Lashley. Now he goes to Wisconsin, where Luke Fickell is taking over. He has brought in Phil Longo to bring an offense that does not look anything like we've ever seen at Wisconsin. But remember that 2020 North Carolina offense when they had a couple of really good backs? Remember how good Sam Howell was in that offense with those backs? I bet Tanner Mordecai is throwing darts in this offense. I bet he puts up some great numbers.
I mean, this is again. I've spent a bunch of time with Phil Longo. He thinks that the Wisconsin fans have nicknamed this the Dairy Raid. That's what they're calling his offense. And
the Dairy Air.
The Dairy Air is even better. And so Longo liked it. He had not heard that, so he had a good chuckle when I was talking to him about it. But the last taste of Wisconsin fans of seeing Tanner Mordecai in that spring game was not good because it was pouring down rain, and he threw 3 interceptions on his first 3 passes. This is a guy who was insanely productive at SMU, and they have really overhauled that Badgers wide receiver room. So that's a good pick. I think this was a good draft. Let me run you a couple names that are on my board that didn't get picked. We mentioned Frank Harris, UTSA. Grayson McCall, Coastal Carolina. Here's the guy I was going to take with my last pick, but didn't, Jalen Daniels.
Mm-hmm. Oh, at Kansas. Absolutely.
I mean, this is a guy that put up a ton of numbers before he got hurt. And then
Spencer Rattler still on the board?
Spencer was not on my board, but
still on the board. He's not
still on the board. Yes.
Hudson Card, who's reemerging at Purdue. He could have a very good season. We mentioned Cam Rising before. Jaden Delora at Arizona.
Yeah, you mentioned Will Rogers. I mean, he's a guy,
Will Howard at Kansas State, if we're talking about guys named Will.
That's true.
He's playing behind a really good offensive line. They could definitely repeat in the Big 12.
I was going to say, he led them to the Big 12 championship a year ago. So,
here we go. Riley Leonard at Duke. 9 wins at Duke last season.
What about a guy that you and I were talking with Jim Nagy, the head of the Senior Bowl? What about a guy that he mentioned that's kind of garnering some buzz? Keaton Slovis.
Absolutely. He's at BYU this year.
Yeah,
by the way,
home.
Jesse and I are going to introduce a segment probably next week. We got a couple media days this week, so we're going to be pretty busy. But Next week, I think we're going to do a segment called Whose Team Is It Anyway, where we just name a player and the other person has to name what team they play for now, because we could get pretty in the weeds with that one.
You could just do it for schools too. Which school are they in? What conference these days?
What conference are they in?
Yes.
This was so much fun and gets me even more excited about this season because, like, we just named Riley Leonard, who was fantastic for Duke last year. He didn't even make either of our draft boards. Like, there's a lot of good quarterback play around the country this season. This is going to be a fun year.
Talia Tagovailoa.
Yes.
To his little brother. I mean, that's another one that's like, he wasn't on my board, but he's a guy that put up big numbers.
Cade McNamara, can he bring the Iowa offense out of the Stone Age?
Yeah. What is it? The March for 325?
That's right. The drive for 325.
Drive for 325, yeah.
And then we got Jeff Sims at Nebraska now after coming from Georgia Tech.
They're going to run that poor boy to death.
Chandler Morris at TCU. He was going to be the starter last year. Max Duggan ends up taking over and after the first game, and he could be very good.
Connor Wegman, 5-star.
Yes.
Bobby Petrino. Wake up the offense.
Lot of talent around Connor Wegman. Yeah, there's a bunch of people that we could have picked down at the bottom of this draft. Don't feel like we're slighting them because it's tough. These decisions were very, very tough. Jesse, it's been a pleasure drafting with you. I regret losing at rock, paper, scissors and not getting Caleb Williams, but I still like my team. I
like my team too. We got to have them put it up on social side by side.
We will. Daniel Garrett, though, killing me with the Andy putting up the all beat out by my backup mid-year team.
Committed
to the bit. So
it worked out well. You do have if you don't have the best starter, you definitely got the best QB rooms.
That's right. If that had been the exercise, I'd be in really good shape right now.
Yeah.